So, you finally saved enough money to buy that brand new or used EV. While that is great, you should watch this video before you take a trip to the dealership. Going green is not easy, and no group of people knows this better than EV owners. From range anxiety to a lack of charging stations and support, owning and maintaining an EV is like going to a full-time job that takes money from you. This is why a growing number of EVs are ending up in junkyards. This trend is driven by several factors, and here are the top 5 reasons. Repair costs. Many people remain skeptical about EVs because of their initial costs. These battery-powered beauties can cost almost double the price of their internal combustion engine counterparts. While many EV makers initially highlighted the enormous savings on gas and maintenance in the long term and have slashed the prices of some of their mid-range EVs, they skipped over a pretty important detail that won't make headlines for obvious reasons. Owing to their widespread use, accessible components, and simpler systems and builds, your everyday ICE could cost only a few $100s to repair, assuming your vehicle didn't suffer almost irreparable damage. For EVs, however, the reality is completely different, as a low-impact collision or less could set you back thousands of dollars. There is the popular story of one Rivian R1T owner who got charged $42,000 for repairs after his vehicle got rear-ended by a Lexus. While you may argue that this is an isolated and extreme case, a report from Reuters begs to differ. An Austin-built 2022 Model Y long range involved in a front collision and listed by IAA in early January had a retail price of $61,388 and an estimated repair cost of $50,388. A second Austin-built Model Y involved in a side collision and listed by IAA had a retail price of $72,667 and an estimated repair cost of $43,814. A recent study showed that EVs cost around 30% more to repair after an accident than their ICE counterparts. So what's driving the cost of EV repairs up? For starters, there's the battery issue. The battery is the most important part of any electric vehicle, and as such, many manufacturers design the entire car, both software and hardware, around the batteries, making them a structural part of the car. However, even though several measures and barriers attempt to protect the battery from damage, a low-impact collision could write this all-important part off. Here's where it gets bad. Any damage to any part of an EV's battery could result in electric shocks, fires, and in rare cases, explosions, compromising the vehicle's safety. This means that in many EV repairs, the batteries or their casing have zero repairability, necessitating replacement. While the cost varies from EV to EV, the average cost ranges between $6,500 to $20,000 outside a warranty. But this is only one part of a growing problem: scarcity of technical support. It is one thing to know that you're ill and another to get a correct diagnosis. Like humans, EVs need to be correctly diagnosed to be accurately repaired. However, the number of skilled mechanics who can expertly assess and diagnose EV problems is even more limited than their charging stations. A report found just 41% of advertised roles in the emerging EV technician occupation were filled last year amid an acute worker shortage in the sector. In some parts of the world, this percentage is even lower, as EVs are more complicated and take longer to repair than gas-powered vehicles. For vehicles that constitute less than 30% of the current automotive population, the cost of training an already established mechanic to become an EV expert is not justified. It takes more money and extensive training to become an expert EV mechanic than an ICE one, and most people would rather indulge in jobs that pay more, especially mining. If somehow you're able to get enough EV experts under one roof, repair shops also have to deal with the strict regulatory and safety standards that come with handling and repairing EVs. EV repairs typically involve handling the battery pack even when it is undamaged. A report highlights that EV repairs demand more labor hours, which account for nearly half of the total repair bill. A key factor is the battery system, which often needs to be de-energized for safety during certain operations. Labor costs rise to another level in cars like the Model Y, which requires up to 314 steps to safely remove the car's structural battery pack. With the rising adoption of EVs, these problems become more worrying, as many EV owners have to take their cars down to the manufacturer or very distant repair shops for even the most basic repairs, as they are the only ones adequately equipped to handle EV repairs. The icing on this green cake is that almost 90% of repairs and replacements require specialized manufactured, owned parts and tools, which are limited, inaccessible, and of course, expensive. A combination of these support problems leads to much discomfort and frustration as owners have to wait months to get their cars back, no matter the costs. The aforementioned Rivian R1T owner had to wait almost 3 months before he could get his car back from the repair shop. He described it as waiting for delivery all over again. It should be highlighted that a good number of EVs are used for ride-hailing services, and one can only imagine the financial dent the repairs costs and waiting time would do to such a person. Let's say you can find a good dealership, your warranty covers the repairs, and you get your car back almost as good as new. You will then be faced with another problem: reliability and financial outlook. EVs are currently not as reliable as advertised. According to a survey by Consumer Reports, EVs are 79% more likely to have more problems than their gas-powered cousins. In truth, the reason for this is fairly obvious. Most manufacturers currently producing EVs are either new to making cars like Rivian and Tesla, or are legacy automakers new to making EVs. These different groups suffer from different but unignorable problems. While Tesla and Rivian provide generally reliable EV components but struggle with the build quality of their vehicles, the opposite is the case for legacy automakers like General Motors, who are known for making structurally solid cars but make headlines for their poor EV components, frequent callbacks, and poor software integration. Many EV owners are forced to pick their poison, and after an initial trip to the repair shop, their EV goes down a slippery slope of more expensive repairs. This poor reliability not only affects the overall impact of these green vehicles on the environment, but also harms their financial outlook or resale value. A study from iSeeCars.com states that EVs have the worst resale value of all propulsion types, with the average percentage loss across all vehicles in the survey coming to around 39%. In comparison, the average EV had lost nearly 50% of its value in 5 years. Possible problems that come up from poor market acceptance, problems with electric drive units, charging components, and the big one, the battery, is only made worse by competition and constant technological advancements. It feels like every day the PR departments of these EV makers constantly promises to introduce better battery technology with improved range and charging times, which leads to more and more EVs getting abandoned by their owners. If you love your EV so much that you can't imagine it ending up in a junkyard, don't worry. Your insurance will do it for you. Insurance nightmare. Insurance companies know best. That's why they usually charge double the premium of ICEs for EVs. They are familiar with all these aforementioned problems that plague EVs, so when the repair cost reaches or exceeds the current, mind you, depreciated value of the EV, they will typically take ownership of the said vehicle and either break it up for parts or scrap it, assuming they are even willing to repair it in the first place. A report from Reuters highlights that rather than dealing with lawsuits that come from poorly performed repairs, most insurers would rather write the car off. Even then, breaking up an EV is not an easy task, as there are many safety precautions to adhere to and materials needed. Not to talk of cars like Tesla that are die-cast, it'll be like trying to break up a toy car for parts. The best eventuality for most EVs after an initial breakdown is that their batteries are recovered, sold, and reused in solar panels and other electronic devices, or they are shipped off to countries like Ukraine, where they are miraculously brought back to life. As EV adoption increases, we might see a drop in the number of EVs ending up in the junkyards due to economies of scale, increased competition among repair shops, and advancements in technology. But how far into the future is that? With EV owners facing many problems like scarcity or replacement parts, poor software integration, and a scarcity of technical support, some EVs have been completely neglected by consumers, with their sales plummeting to zero. Find out the top 9 EVs that even auto dealers won't touch in this next video.